Earl Thomas, the former Seahawks Pro Bowler, is signing with the Baltimore Ravens. This is, I'm told, a 4-year deal worth about $55 million. This is something the Ravens got in, were interested in, but really got in the mix and hammered it in today. They had it obviously opening at safety with Eric Weddle leaving, or with releasing Eric Weddle, and obviously he went to the Los Angeles Rams. We all were wondering where Earl Thomas was going to go, and now we know he has, in fact, found a home in Baltimore.
This deal checks in at $13.75 million a year. We'll have to see the entire numbers on that, but presuming that average per year is accurate, that would put Earl Thomas right behind the $14 million average on the deal signed earlier this week by both Tyrann Mathieu with the Chiefs, as well as Landon Collins with the Redskins. Collins actually shares the same agent as Earl Thomas. That's David Mulugeta of Athletes First. 3 safeties, that means. We talked about the safeties all last off season. What's happening with the position? Why was there this logjam? But there were not these 3 upper echelon type of players in that class. All 3 of those guys end up resetting the market in terms of getting beyond what had been the bar, which is Eric Berry's $13 million per year deal. And that now should set the stage for some of that next tier to get paid as well. A bounce back year for the safety market. We saw Eric Reed, of course, sign his deal with the Panthers. A lot more money in that deal than he was able to get a year ago. This is good news for some of those other safeties who remain unsigned right now.
Well, if you're just joining us here on Free Agency Frenzy, from Ian Rappaport's mouth to your ears, Earl Thomas signing or expected to sign a deal with the Baltimore Ravens, 4 years, $55 million yearly. 13.75, extremely lucrative. We were saying we were waiting for Earl Thomas for that shoe to drop, and it finally has. Ian Rappaport, Tom Pelissero with the very latest. Gentlemen, thank you. We'll see more from you as the show rolls on. But in the meantime, 4 years, $55 million from the Baltimore Ravens. Earl Thomas compensated extremely handsomely, and he's going to have a nice little fit with this Ravens ball club.
Well, first of all, Ian Rappaport, if this is the news that you're going to tell me off air and you're expecting me to do held my end of the bargain, that's out of the window now. So I'll say this, though. Baltimore has gotten a playmaker to help build this defense back up. You lost Weddle, you lost Suggs. You put a guy like Earl Thomas roam the middle of the field and kind of do that disguising defense, a guy that can play sideline to sideline. I mean, this is probably the best fit for Earl Thomas. Now, I was thinking you stay in the Seattle-type scheme where you're comfortable, you know what's going on. But now you go to an attacking 3-4 defense where they're going to send blitzes all over the place, and you have something as close to Ed Reed as we're going to see in football for a long time in Earl Thomas, a guy that can play the middle of the field, is a very savvy ball player, high IQ football player, and will be your quarterback back there the same way Eric Weddle was able to do. Just imagine a guy that can line up at the linebacker position, then sprint back into the safety position and make plays. Something we've seen Ed Reed do, as well as obviously Sean Taylor when he was with the Redskins. Earl Thomas is in that same mold as a football player at the safety position.
High praise when it comes to that comparison. Ed Reed, Earl Thomas, and Earl Thomas now the newest Raven. Once everything goes down, 4 years, $55 million contract. That's what it looks to be right now, $13.75 million a year. So let's bring in Charlie Cashley, our former GM, right here. And this is a big-time move for the Baltimore Ravens. And Earl Thomas got the money he was looking for, Chuck.
Well, that's okay. The Ravens got a good football player.
Yeah.
The other thing, it kind of turns the momentum around. Not that you're worrying about momentum here in March as opposed to in September, but it does turn the momentum around with all the players that you lost because you got a Pro Bowl player. He's in his prime. This guy's a legitimate playmaker who's making plays. You don't have to worry about whether he can come in and be a good football player. He'll learn the system. He'll be a quarterback for you back there. He's a versatile guy. You solidified the middle of that back part of the defense. You got excellent corners, so your coverage is going to be real good. You know, so when Seattle was good, it started with the great secondary. Then they got the pass rush. Ravens may have to work a little bit on the pass rush. They've got some young guys there, Matt Judon and Tyus Bowser, who they took in the second round last year, who I kind of like coming out of college. I thought he was a pretty good rusher. So they may have a chance with some young guys there to keep that rush in there. They'll stop the run. They're physical on the inside. Good move, Ravens.
Yeah, he's a productive player. Earl Thomas is ranking inside the top 5 among safeties in interceptions and passes defended since entering the league back in 2010. As we touched on, he's the consummate air traffic controller, and he will now do it for those Baltimore Ravens in 2019. Without further ado, let's head to Owings Mills, Maryland. That's where Mike Giardi is on the case. And Mike, this is a ground-shattering move. 4 years, $55 million for Earl Thomas, newest member of the Ravens, man.
Yeah, there was a lot of questions here in Baltimore about what the plan was as you continue to see important pieces of the number one ranked defense last year walk away in free agency. Smith was gone, C.J. Mosley leaving for the Jets. Obviously, Eric Weddle was released. And there was a curiosity as you're trying to build around a young quarterback who energized the franchise last year, Lamar Jackson. Well, you need that defense. And where are you going with it? Well, Earl Thomas is certainly a great answer for this football team. One of the elite safeties in the game. And when you think about the Ravens' history, they've always had a guy like this. Of course, Ed Reed being most notable. And Earl Thomas certainly can step into those shoes that Ed Reed left here and create a legacy of his own. And again, re-energize this defense. He's a locker room leader. He brings great energy. And sideline to sideline, he can make so many plays for this football team. And it was interesting because there was a lot of discussion over the last 24 hours or so if the Ravens were going to be the landing spot for Le'Veon Bell. Yeah. And I was told that there was no real interest here in Le'Veon Bell and no real discussions in that. Well, they were focusing their energies on Earl Thomas at 4 years, $55 million. Eric Berry had set the mark for safeties at $13 million a couple seasons ago. Now there are 3 safeties alone in this market this year that have gone over that number, including Earl Thomas, Cole.
Well, now we'll see if Baltimore is still expressing interest in a one Mark Ingram. Things unfolding extremely rapidly. Mike Giardi in Owings Mills with the very latest on the Baltimore Ravens. Now for more on Earl Thomas, let's head to the boardroom. Steve Weish and company, it's time.
Well, thanks a lot, Cole. Joined by Mike Silver, former Giants exec Mark Ross, Judy Batista. Guys, the safety market, it is on fire a year after seeing the safety market really was a depressed position. And now Earl Thomas, Mike Silver, we know he is one of the dynamic players in the NFL, one of the few defensive players you pay to see. This seems like it could not be a more perfect fit going to a team like the Ravens.
I mean, how great to have, this franchise, which is so steeped in defensive excellence, and the iconic Ed Reed, who now is a Hall of Famer, to have probably the greatest safety of this generation have a second chapter of his career with a retooled Ravens defense because Terrell Suggs, another icon, left to go to the Cardinals quietly, cutting that deal a couple days ago. When we last saw Earl Thomas, he was giving a salute, a farewell salute, I believe. I can't really show it on television, but he was, let's say, waving goodbye to his former employers in Seattle. He was very upset. It just suffered an injury. Now he's making the money salute. And good for Earl. He has earned this money based on an incredible career of past performance. He plays with an incredible amount of passion, and it just makes sense to me, Mark, that the Ravens would have a guy like that patrolling the back end.
I'm glad you're not depressed about him not going to the Cowboys. Have you recovered from that? Are you okay?
Oh, we do talk about the Cowboys a lot.
We do?
Really?
We'll get to that.
No, I'm just glad he's getting the deal he deserves.
I think it's a great fit for him and for Baltimore. As you said, Baltimore is such a stable organization. This guy's a stable player. But it's interesting you said he's getting rewarded for past performance. He has missed about 19 games in the past 3 years. When old players start to get hurt, he's turning 30 in May, they continue to get hurt. So that's the big concern. Which Earl Thomas are you going to get? The one from 3-4 years ago, pre-injury, or the post-injury Earl Thomas? But all in all, it looks like a good signing, especially based on the safety market. A few days ago, we're talking about why did they give Landon Collins all this money? Well, because everybody's going to give safeties the money now.
I have 2 thoughts. First of all, I feel good for the safeties who last year were despondent at what their situation was, and now it has rebounded. And then some, they're exploding. Also, how great is it that within the space of, 12 hours, right? We saw the Cleveland Browns make the big move to load up. So they've got Landry and OBJ now. And now here we go.
Comes the counter.
Their rival, the counter, with Earl Thomas. As you mentioned, this is where the game is going, right? Safeties are now an intrinsic part of the defense. And I'm wondering what we're going to see in years coming up with how safeties will be emphasized, including in this draft class.
Well, Mark, to that point, I mean, this is a situation now where most teams now are playing 2 linebackers most of the time. Some teams decide whether that third DB is going to be a corner or safety. Earl Thomas fits that combo role. Ty Matthew fits that combo role. Landon Collins really doesn't. I think that's why a lot of us were taken back about that. But the value of the safety, especially guys coming out of college who can play that combo role, we don't see them like we saw them last year. The draft last year would depress that safety market. this isn't kind of the same group, but just about the position itself.
Right.
When it used to be position non grata, now it seems to be a favorable spot.
There's always been iconic players, Palomalus and the Ed Reeds that we've talked about, and with Brian Dawkins with Philly, we had him. So there's always been those guys, but definitely with the spread offenses now in college, starting to not creep their way, but full-fledged in the NFL now, you do need more space players and a way to find these people that can do dual roles, whether it be a linebacker/safety, a corner/safety, a DN/linebacker, and Earl definitely fits that mold.
I love the whole safety thing, but this is Earl Thomas. I just think this is different. Remember when Rod Woodson became a safety and ended up on the Ravens? And to me, this is a special player. Such a great playmaker, so good at going sideline to sideline and just getting around the ball. And I just think it's going to change the entire vibe in Baltimore. Now, Don Martindale, their defensive coordinator, has done a
You're the only person who calls him Don, by the way.
I do.
Wink.
It's Wink.
I know it's Wink. But Don Martindale has done a tremendous job with that defense. They were an incredible unit last year, and they've done it with new faces. They've drafted well for a long time. But this gives them a standard bearer in the back. And I'm just pumped for Earl Thomas.